So, for some reason, a lot of people thought that Fallout 4 was actually a really good game. I'm not sure why. Maybe they didn't play Fallout 3 or Fallout New Vegas or any of those. Maybe they didn't play any of Fallout 4's predecessors. For whatever reason it may have been, the game sold pretty well. So, let's get into that. So, Fallout 4 had a lot of hype around it. Ever since maybe a year or two before its release, people were going nuts. As soon as the trailer dropped, people were ecstatic. And that's probably because it took them almost a decade to make that game since the release of Fallout New Vegas. But for whatever reason, people really, really wanted to see the game. And I understand that. I'm a huge Fallout fan, so, you know, it makes sense. But did the game really pump out what it was promising? And was it a good Fallout game? So, there's no denying that Fallout 4 was a graphical improvement over its predecessor Fallout New Vegas, but the engine they were using was still quite outdated, and you could really see when walking through the wasteland that they hadn't spent enough time polishing the environment. There were tons of examples of floors and walls that just were one solid color, and honestly, there's no real excuse for that. This game had tens of millions of dollars in the budget. They had a great design team. There's just no reason they should have had an issue like that. This isn't a common thing. It doesn't happen in every release, and they can't really be let off for this. And you may be thinking that's just, okay, one, two, three, examples, but this was everywhere. You could see that they didn't put a lot of time into actually making the textures look like they were well connected and realistic. They just didn't look right. They looked cartoony. They didn't look very good. And, you know, I guess we expect that to some extent from a Fallout game and even a Skyrim game because that's just the way the engine has worked. But honestly, it really ruins the immersive experience. And from a game that was released only a few years ago, to not have graphics that are up to par with some of the other AAA titles for a game like Fallout, which is a huge, huge title, then I don't really know what to say. That's not okay. So we really need to get to the root of the issue when talking about graphics in Fallout. They're still using the Gamebryo engine. That game is well over a decade old, almost 15 years old, and the newest version of it is only about 7 years old. Like, 7 years ago, we were still playing MW3. That's ridiculous, okay? This is a 2018 release. Why are they still using a 7-year-old unupdated engine? That's ridiculous. I can't comprehend this. We have CryEngine, for God's sakes. We have Unreal Engine. We have these amazing engines, okay? And they're using absolute shit compared to those. This isn't necessary, and I do understand that the game kind of works with that engine to an extent, but it's really not acceptable from a 2018 release. It just isn't. And this bullshit where they were promising, I don't remember what it was, like 15 times the detail from previous Fallout games. I'm sorry, that's fucking ridiculous. First of all, that's not true. Second of all, that could never have been true. And third of all, where the fuck did you get that number from? Like, seriously, where did you pull that number out of? I don't understand, and I don't even see what the point of promising that is. Like, not a lot of people are playing Fallout for incredible graphics, and people know what they expect when they're getting into Fallout, okay? They have just kind of settled with what you're providing in previous games, and, that's okay. But for you to just lie to them and say, hey, our graphics are unbelievable now. They're better than CryEngine. Come check this out. They look just like real life. And then for you to deliver some BS that looks just like the last Fallout game, what do you gain? I don't see what you gain in that situation. I don't. And to be fair to Fallout, when I was younger and I was playing Fallout 3 just after its release, I mean, I did think the graphics were pretty good. I had no complaints with them. For the time, they were good. That's fine. And Fallout New Vegas was just about the same. The graphics looked about the same, but that was okay for like 2009. That was acceptable back then. But this is 2018, 2019. Like, we need good graphics. They can make good graphics. Look at games like Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Those graphics are amazing. Even COD World War II. Those graphics were good. The game was shitty, but the graphics were good. Or, Spider-Man or God of War. Those graphics are spectacular, and they're leagues above where Fallout is at right now. I don't understand this. A lot of the games that are smaller than Fallout have much better graphics. I don't understand the reason for that. I know that they like using the engine that they're using, and that's cool and that's fine, but they at least need to update it to modern standards. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. I mean, let's just take a second to think about the fact that Crysis 2 and Fallout New Vegas released in the same year. They look like they're a decade apart. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, they were both really good games, and Crysis leaned really heavily on the graphical aspect, but still, it's kind of unbelievable just to think about that. So, as far as the story in Fallout 4 is concerned, it's pretty typical of the franchise. A guy loses his child and he's on a quest to relocate him. That's, pretty normal. It's kind of in line with a son loses his father and he's got to go on a mission to find him, like in Fallout 3. I have no real problem with that, but they executed it fucking horribly. The characters in the environment made no sense. To be honest, the end of the game, and there's a spoiler alert here, the optional end of the game where you have to, kill your father because he leads this group of iRobot type, like human-esque synths. Like, what is that? That's not a good story. It just sounds like somebody came up with some random idea and everybody's like, you know what, fuck it. We don't have any ideas. Let's just go with that. And this was really sad for me because I kind of disagreed with a lot of the other commentators. I thought the rest of the Fallouts had, a pretty good story. I enjoyed them. Honestly, I cried when I finished Fallout 3. I was emotional when your father died in that game. But to see it just go so far downhill in Fallout 4, it was such a generic storyline. The voice acting was ridiculously bad. Like, comically bad. And the interaction, system for speaking with AI and NPCs was ridiculous. It didn't feel good. It didn't play well. I don't know why they decided it was a good idea to change the formula from previous games, but it didn't work. And one of the things I was really looking forward to in Fallout 4 was just the gunplay. I thought it was going to be really satisfying and realistic, but it was really unenjoyable. And I understand that they're really trying to put a focus on the VAT system. That's like the real shooting mechanic in the game. But if they're going to make, a AAA title in 2018, you should be able to shoot people without VATS and have it still feel okay. You feel like you're using a Nerf gun when you're not using VATS. You barely do any damage. It's almost impossible to hit people, and it feels like shit. Like it doesn't seem like there's any point at shooting people without VATS at all. It just seems like that's not supposed to be in the game. That's not the way you're supposed to play through the game, and that doesn't make a lot of sense. I get that VATS is a cool component to use as well, and maybe that's 50% of the game, but to make that be like 90% of the way to, kill people or hurt people in the game, that makes no sense to me. Although I must say, and it's important to compliment Bethesda when they actually do something right, I thought the new menu that they created, the seamless menu, for looting dead NPCs or crates and stuff like that, I thought that was really good. I liked it. I liked that you didn't have to, pause the game and do all that and go into, your Pip-Boy to loot people. I thought it was good that you could kind of just loot people while still being in the environment. I thought that was a nice addition. I thought that was a needed change, so way to go for that, Bethesda. Now, a lot of people are kind of surprised that Fallout 76 was just a horrible game, but I'm not. Fallout 4 wasn't that great, and this is just kind of on par with where they were going. These games have seemed a lot like money grabs. They haven't played like the other Fallout games. It doesn't look like they're putting a lot of passion into it, and it took them years to make Fallout 4, but they just pumped out Fallout 76 in like a year and a half. Like, why? Why were they able to do it so quickly? I mean, it was clearly just a remake of Fallout 4. They took the same base stuff out of that game, threw it into Fallout 76, put some weird-ass marketing schemes on it, made it a multiplayer game, and said, here you go, have fun. And quick side note here, fuck you, Todd Howard. You lied to your fans and your supporters. I can just picture you jacking off into a pile of cash that you made from Fallout 76, undeservingly, while thinking about how badly you fucked over your entire player base. And all you did was proceed to show your fans just how little you cared about them. You were releasing special editions that were false advertising, just completely false advertising. They were absolute shit. People were paying upwards of $100, and then you released this rum bottle that's, yep, false advertising again, but fucking horrible. The rum was terrible, and it costed, what, like $80? Like, what? Why? And why did you even think that you could release some sort of liquor? That nobody's expecting that from Bethesda. It's just that was a bad idea. That was a bad gimmick. So I don't want to get too sidetracked. Let's get back to Fallout 4 here. Fallout 4, it was a playable game for sure, but let's think about Skyrim just as an example, as a comparison. Skyrim was incredibly replayable. There was always stuff to do. Even if it was literally just collecting fucking cheese rolls, it was still fun. It didn't matter. You could go and kill shop owners or random people or guards, or hell, you could get thrown in prison and play through like a whole quest line of just being in that prison. A base game mechanic. That was amazing. There's none of that in Fallout 4. There's none of that kind of content. There's no depth. It's just a storyline and a few kind of generic and boring side quests. But aside from that, there's not a lot of content there. Plain and simple. And it's not really hard to make that kind of content that makes a game replayable. You just have to put a moment in and think about stuff that your audience is going to find cool or interesting. Maybe add another mechanic to the game just for that quest that's, a lot of fun or just really unique. I mean, let's just take a minute to appreciate the quest from Fallout 3, Tranquility Lane. That was completely original. Having a simulator that takes you back to the past, makes the game black and white, and has you try and find a serial killer as a kid. I mean, I don't even know how they thought of that. That's amazing. So, one of the things that Bethesda doesn't seem to understand these days is that it's usually the small things that make a game. Okay, you can have a good quest and good graphics and all that, but if you're getting just these little details right a lot, then your game's going to be good. People are going to enjoy it, and it actually creates sort of the niche that gives birth to that cult-like following for your game. So in summary, we've talked about, the storyline, the graphics, the quests, all that kind of stuff. But it's important to keep in mind that Fallout 4 is a decent game at its core. It's just not a decent Fallout game, and that's the key there. We have incredibly high standards for Fallout for good reasons. We buy these games in this franchise because we're expecting good content. That's why we pay the money that we pay. And we're really going to hope that going forward Bethesda can fix its mistakes and learn from Fallout 76. I'm not sure that they're going to do that, but I hope that they've gotten the feedback they need to correct their mistakes. Not gonna lie, I'm a bit doubtful. I am, but I know that the production team is good at what they do. They've proven that at least, and we do owe them a second chance. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed my little rant about Fallout 76 and Fallout 4. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next week.